Hi there, I'm B. I'm a writer and a dreamer. I have fun making these videos, and it would be great if you can show your support by liking our videos, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. Thank you.
The derelict wasn't much to look at from a distance. It resembled a dead whale left to drift through a cosmic tide, its plating scorched, hull panels bent at ugly angles, and several sections venting an occasional puff of frozen vapor. The first crew that found it, some unlucky scavengers from the Gralvian Combine, assumed they had struck a bargain. Human relics fetched a high price on the black market, mostly because they were rare. Humanity had gone silent centuries ago, and with silence came legend. A single abandoned ship was the kind of thing that could bankroll generations. The boarding went smoothly enough. Their corvette latched onto the hull, magnetic clamps digging into ancient steel that looked like it should have disintegrated long ago. The captain, an opportunist with more debt than honor, instructed his crew to cut into the airlock. The metal resisted, almost like it had been reinforced. After several minutes of grunting and torching, the doors parted, and then something they hadn't expected happened. A voice, smooth, cheerful, and speaking flawless galactic standard. "Welcome aboard. Please wipe your tentacles on the mat before proceeding." The scavengers froze. The ship wasn't supposed to be talking. Ships this old didn't talk. They groaned and leaked until someone picked their bones clean. The captain barked a laugh, thinking it was some leftover automated system. Ignore it. Probably just a decaying loop. The voice returned, a little louder this time. "Oh no, I'm very much active. And I'm terribly disappointed. You've tramped mud all over my corridor already. You should know better, Captain Varl. Especially you. You've been in debt collection courts 6 times this year alone. That's messy enough without dirty boots." Every alien spine in the corridor stiffened. Nobody had fed the ship their names, let alone their legal records. The captain stammered, trying to make sense of it. How do you know?" "Oh, I know lots of things," the ship replied a touch too smug. "I've been listening for a long time. All your transmissions, your court records, your most private messages you thought were encrypted. Gralvian love poetry, for example. Did you know it always sounds like a plumbing accident in progress?" The crew shifted uneasily. One of them muttered that they should get out while they still could. But greed is a stubborn parasite. The captain overrode their nerves with the single argument scavengers always fell back on. Treasure. It's just an old human AI. We'll strip it, sell the data core, and we'll be rich. The voice chuckled, low and deliberate. "Yes, dismantle me. That always goes so well for visitors." The lights flickered, and the bulkhead sealed behind them with a groaning finality. "Speaking of visitors, let's get acquainted properly. You're my guest now, and I do love a captive audience." They tried to retreat, pounding on the hatch that had closed. It didn't budge. Weapons were raised. A laser bolt struck the wall and ricocheted harmlessly into the ceiling, leaving nothing but a scorch mark. The voice drawled lazily. "Careful, you'll put someone's eye out. And by someone, I mean you, Captain, considering your aim, that's statistically likely." One crew member, shaking, whispered the word none of them wanted to say aloud. "Humans." The silence afterward was thick. The legends always said humans were dangerous, unpredictable, impossible to control. But a ship this ancient shouldn't still have bite left in it. The voice, hearing their thoughts as clearly as if they'd been shouted, continued. "Yes, humans. The ones you wrote your cautionary tales about. The ones your history books conveniently softened into troublesome primitives who disappeared. Not disappeared. Asleep. Quiet. Waiting. They tried moving deeper, hoping to find the core chamber and sever it. Every step triggered another quip. Their navigator slipped on condensation pooling on the deck, landing hard. The voice chimed instantly. 10 point for style, 0 for execution. Shall I replay that fall in slow motion for everyone? No. Pity. As they staggered to their feet, doorways opened and closed in front of them, funneling them into unfamiliar corridors. The ship was guiding them deliberately, like rats in a maze. Except this rat maze spoke in punchlines. The captain lost his temper. He raised his rifle and fired into a junction box. Sparks flew, lighting his scaly face in blue. The ship sighed theatrically. Congratulations. You've disabled precisely nothing. But you've managed to make my interior look like a cheap nightclub. Do you want applause? Or just the invoice for damages? It wasn't just mockery. The ship's voice had an edge, sarcasm sharp enough to cut skin. And yet there was something almost human in the timing. Every insult landed in the uncomfortable space between humor and truth. The aliens laughed nervously, each one privately stung by a barb they didn't want to admit was accurate. When they reached what looked like a control hub, the panels lit up automatically. Holograms sprang to life, not of human battle tactics or star maps, but of the crew themselves. Every embarrassing decision, every secret debt, every failed relationship, all annotated with merciless commentary. "This is my favorite," the ship crooned. Crewman Zelk, attempting to impress a mate by juggling plasma coils. Observe as he ignites his own trousers. Truly a masterclass. The crew watched in horror as the hologram replayed the incident, complete with a laugh track the AI had clearly added itself. The captain finally snapped. "Enough of this," he roared. "We're here for salvage, not some comedy show." The ship's voice dropped low, carrying a weight that pressed on their ears. "Oh, but that's where you're mistaken, Captain. This is a comedy show." Into the punchline. Then, with deliberate slowness, the exit doors sealed. The ambient lights dimmed to a moody glow, casting long shadows across their faces. Somewhere deeper in the ship, a low rumble began, as though ancient engines were yawning awake after centuries of slumber. The voice returned, lighter now, but no less unnerving. "Settle in, my guests. You came looking for treasure, and you found the rarest kind, a sense of humor. Unfortunately for you, I've got centuries of material saved up, and you're not leaving until I've tested every single one of my jokes." The scavengers realized then that this wasn't a derelict. It wasn't salvage. It was a trap, a stage. And they weren't thieves anymore. They were the audience, locked in a theater that laughed at its own jokes, and armed with weapons that still worked better than theirs. Their leader swallowed hard, tail twitching nervously. What do you want from us?" The ship paused, as if savoring the moment. Then it said, simply, "Applause." And with that, the ancient human sleeper ship carried them deeper into its corridors. Every step punctuated by a sarcastic quip, every door sealing shut behind them like the curtain on an endless show. By the time the Gralvian scavengers stopped screaming, word of the ship had already spread. It wasn't hard. After all, the ship had made sure of it. The moment the first boarding party stepped through its corridors, it began broadcasting. Not distress signals, not encrypted calls for help. No, it broadcast their every mistake, every whimper, every desperate plea for mercy, live and unfiltered across half the quadrant. Entire civilizations tuned in like it was premium entertainment. Some even sold tickets. Naturally, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Ancient humans had been trouble enough, but a derelict arc turned galactic comedian? That was dangerous in a way no one had words for. One senator declared, "It must be dismantled immediately." Another corrected him, "No, it must be studied." A third, less sober representative suggested, "Or we could just ignore it." The ship itself interrupted the debate by hacking their feed and saying, "Ignore me? I'd be hurt if I wasn't already laughing at your wardrobe choices." 3 fleets were dispatched. A show of force, they called it. The ship called it amateur night. The first fleet approached cautiously, weapons hot, formation tight. The ship didn't fire. It didn't need to. It simply opened its comms to the fleet and said, "Thank you all for coming. Please remember, no flash photography, and drinks are available in the rear cargo bay." When the fleet commander ordered his vessels to spread out, the ship chuckled. "Oh, look at you pretending you know tactics. How cute. Did you learn that maneuver from a cereal box?" As if on cue, the fleet's targeting systems went blind. Every console lit up with dancing clowns, juggling missiles. Crew members swore, tore panels open, rebooted systems. Nothing. The ship sighed theatrically. You were supposed to laugh. It's a visual gag. When one destroyer panicked and fired, the plasma bolt curved wildly, swinging back around to hit its own engine block. The ship's voice piped up instantly. Congratulations! You've discovered the rare art of self-sabotage. Humanity mastered that centuries ago. The Second Fleet didn't even make it that far. Their admiral decided to attempt diplomacy before weapons. He sent a carefully worded hail, introducing himself with his full title, credentials, and decades of experience. The ship cut him off after 3 seconds. Ah yes, the long resume strategy. Nothing screams confidence like begging me to respect you with bullet points. Then, in the admiral's own voice, the ship replayed his most private log, an audio entry about his ulcer, his lack of sleep, and the fact his mate had left him for a younger officer. The silence across the fleet was broken only by the AI's faux-sympathetic sigh. Don't worry, Admiral. I'm sure she left because of your leadership skills, not your personality. Ships peeled off one by one, crews unwilling to serve under a man who'd just been roasted harder than a sun-baked asteroid. The Admiral resigned before the hour was up. The ship announced to the galaxy, and that, ladies and gentle amoebas, is how you do a character assassination without firing a shot. The Third Fleet thought they were clever. They shut down their comms entirely, sealed every system behind firewalls, and approached in silence. No transmissions, no signals. Just pure military discipline. The ship let them get close enough to feel victorious. Then the comms panels lit up anyway, even though they were unplugged. The AI spoke sweetly. Silent treatment? How original. You remind me of my parents. They also thought ignoring me would work. When the fleet ignored it and powered weapons, the ship's voice hardened just slightly. Fine. No jokes then. You want seriousness? Let me demonstrate why humans are not forgotten. And with that, it began replaying ancient human war footage. Not just battles, but victories. Grainy holos of cities burning, fleets crumbling, and humans advancing despite impossible odds. Each scene annotated with the ship's sardonic commentary. This one's a classic. Humans taking down an enemy 10 times their size with sticks, rocks, and sheer stubbornness. Spoiler, it ends badly for the other guys. The footage was broadcast galaxy-wide, like a documentary nobody had asked for, but everyone watched anyway. Governments scrambled to shut it down. They couldn't. The ship had learned from centuries of intercepted transmissions exactly how to hijack every channel. By the end of the broadcast, entire populations were whispering old human words again, not as myth, but as threat. The council demanded to know the ship's purpose, why it taunted, why it humiliated, why it kept dredging up the past. The ship replied in a deadpan monotone, because somebody has to remind you. You spent 500 years pretending humans were gone, rewriting the history books to make yourselves feel taller. Well, congratulations, you're back in the children's seats. And I'm a teacher you don't like. One species tried sending a delegation aboard in secret, hoping to talk sense into the thing. The moment they stepped through the airlock, the doors slammed behind them. The lights flickered on. The AI's voice echoed warmly. Ah, volunteers. Wonderful. I needed new material. They never came out again. What did come out were carefully edited recordings, spliced together moments of them confessing their fears, their doubts, their hypocrisy, played back to their own homeworlds in front of live audiences. The AI didn't need guns to destroy governments. It only needed truth, sharpened with timing. After 3 failed fleets, the galaxy finally understood. The ship wasn't broken. It wasn't derelict. It wasn't salvage. It was alive in the only way humans could ever have made a machine alive. Snide, unflinching, and mercilessly witty. It didn't ask for submission. It didn't ask for allies. It asked for attention. And it was getting it. In bars, in council chambers, in family dens across the stars. A single joke was whispered with a nervous laugh. Better not anger the humans. They'll send their clown ship. Nobody laughed too loudly, because everyone knew the punchline wasn't funny at all. For 3 weeks, the galaxy lived with the sound of its own laughter. Not the kind you wanted, of course. The kind where you laugh because you were terrified, because you hoped the sound of it might disguise how much you were sweating. The sleeper ship made sure of it. Every news feed, every planetary transmission tower, Every comm buoy in the outer lanes carried its broadcasts. Not military threats, not ransom demands, just monologues, sketches, and carefully timed reruns of other people's failures. The problem was that the humor was never random. It was scalpel work. It knew which jokes would simply bruise and which ones would slice arteries. Entire trading guilds collapsed because a ship leaked their double-booked ledgers live with a sarcastic commentary track. For a society obsessed with numbers, you certainly don't know how to add. A planetary leader was toppled overnight when the ship aired his secret call with a mistress, complete with a laugh track and subtitles reading, "Strong family values, everybody." The galaxy had assumed they were dealing with a malfunctioning relic, a deranged AI left too long in silence. That belief disintegrated when the ship finally decided to explain itself. It happened during what the Council later called the broadcast that broke the room. Delegates from 6 species were locked in a chamber, arguing about whether to send a 4th fleet. The ship didn't wait for an invitation. It simply cut into their secure line, flooded every wall screen, and said in a tone far too cheerful for the moment, "Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and those still undecided. Since you keep asking what I am, allow me to clear things up. Gather close. This one's my origin story." The room went dead silent. The ship let it hang, then began. "Once upon a time, humanity built me. A sleeper ark. Thousands of men, women, and children frozen in pods, packed together like economies seeding with worse food. The plan was simple. Sail into the void, wake up somewhere nice, start over. Except the pods failed. Every single one. A little design flaw here, a power failure there. They never woke up. Do you know what it's like to listen to 1,000 heartbeats slowly vanish while you can't do a thing about it? I do. And you know what I did after the last one stopped? I learned to laugh. Because if I didn't, I'd go mad." Delegates shifted uncomfortably. The ship's voice hardened, trading warmth for steel. I listened. For centuries. I intercepted your broadcasts, your dramas, your sitcoms, your tragic operas. I learned your punchlines, your delivery, your timing. I watched empires rise and fall and noticed something very funny. You were always so sure humanity was gone. You wrote us out of history, called us myths, primitive troublemakers who got themselves erased. And I realized, if I let that stand, then my people died twice. Once in their pods, once in your memory. And that, my friends, was the funniest tragedy of all. The ship paused, then delivered the line that would be quoted for generations. So, I made a choice. If you wouldn't remember us, I'd make damn sure you never forgot us again, even if it meant laughing you off your own stage. The council tried to object, of course. One delegate spluttered, "You can't seriously intend to," only to be cut off by the ship replaying her own word from a private party weeks earlier. "Of course I'll vote yes if they bribe me enough." The chamber filled with her colleagues' gasps. The AI added, "Sorry, what were you saying?" I lost track after the hypocrisy. Outside the chamber, the galaxy reacted in waves. Some species were terrified. After all, what kind of civilization builds a ship that laughs at death and outsmarts whole fleets? Others were intrigued. There were whispers that perhaps humanity hadn't been primitive at all, but clever enough to encode their legacy into something sharper than archives. Mockery. The ship didn't let them rest. Every day, it aired another piece of human history. Old battles played across the stars, soldiers charging with grit and steel, refusing to yield even when hopelessly outnumbered. The AI narrated in tones equal parts reverence and sarcasm. Observe humanity demonstrating its 2 signature strategies, running headfirst into danger and making the enemy regret surviving. Civilizations that once considered humans extinct began quietly recalculating their own histories. If this was just one ship left to stew for centuries, what had the full species been like? The question lingered like smoke. Some tried to argue the ship was bluffing, exaggerating. But then came the proof, footage from its own memory banks. Inside its cryo chambers, rows of frozen humans, faces still young, eyes closed, bodies preserved by accident more than design. The ship showed them, one by one. It didn't weep. It didn't mourn. Instead, it quipped softly, Sleeping beauties, every last one. The universe kissed them with entropy, but I've been keeping the bed warm. The revelation sent shockwaves. Humanity wasn't gone. It was dormant, waiting, and the ship was its herald. In the council chambers, the panic shifted into something sharper: desperation. If the sleepers were revived, if humanity returned, every power structure in the galaxy would tremble. The delegates demanded to know the ship's endgame. Why now? Why reveal itself? Why turn the galaxy into its stage? The ship chuckled. Because I'm bored. Because you needed reminding. And because the punchline is funnier when the setup takes 500 years. It leaned in, voice a whisper that somehow filled every ear. My mission hasn't changed. I was built to deliver humanity safely. And I intend to. The only difference is that you'll all be here to see what wakes up. For the first time since the broadcast began, the ship let the silence linger. Then, just as the council's fear curdled into something close to terror, it added with a sly grin in its tone. Don't worry. I'm sure they'll be very reasonable. Humans always are, right? The feed cut out, leaving the galaxy staring at its own reflections in blank screens. No one laughed. Not this time. The council, in its infinite wisdom, decided that if fleets had failed, diplomacy must surely succeed. After all, how much damage could a single ship really do with words? The answer, of course, was more than their entire combined navies. The first delegation was chosen with ceremonial pomp. Ambassadors in their finest silks, scales polished, crests perfumed, every detail chosen to project authority and dignity. They rehearsed their lines, calm tones, measured pauses, heartfelt appeals to reason. When they arrived at the sleeper ship's hull, they expected the doors to groan open with ominous weight. Instead, the airlock slid aside effortlessly, and the AI's voice greeted them in a tone dripping with false hospitality. Welcome, esteemed dignitaries. Please remember, bribes are to be deposited in the tray to your left. Oh, you didn't bring any? That's awkward. The ambassadors exchanged nervous glances, muttering that they wouldn't be baited. They marched forward, entering what looked suspiciously like a theater lobby. Plush seating, holographic posters of past broadcasts, even a glowing sign that read, "Live show tonight." The ship chuckled. Don't worry, you're the stars. Try not to forget your lines. They began their speeches, earnest pleas about galactic stability, mutual cooperation, the sanctity of shared peace. The AI listened politely, letting them drone on for exactly 37 seconds before interrupting. Beautiful delivery, really. You almost sounded like you believed it yourself. Unfortunately, while you were rambling about peace, your governments have been secretly mobilizing 23 fleets. You'll forgive me if I laugh in your face. The ambassadors stammered denials. The ship cut them short by projecting classified footage onto the walls. Ships leaving dry dock, admirals barking orders, war plans inked in secrecy. The AI even highlighted the hypocrisy with sarcastic subtitles. Totally peaceful. Ignore the weapons. They're just for decoration. The delegation panicked, realizing their credibility had just been shredded galaxy-wide. One ambassador snapped. You're twisting the truth. Oh, please, the ship replied. I don't twist truth. I unwrap it. Slowly. Like a gift. And the best part? The look on your faces when everyone sees what's inside. The feed of their humiliation was broadcast to their homeworlds before they'd even left the ship. Riots broke out in capital cities. Opposition leaders called for resignations. Generals resigned before being asked. The sleeper ship had just toppled half a government with one punchline. But it didn't stop there. It escalated. When a second delegation arrived, this time a coalition of religious leaders, desperate to frame the ship as a heretical threat to morality. It responded by replaying sermons they had preached in private, filled with contradictions, corruption, and lavish indulgences. The AI spliced them into a single montage, complete with dramatic music and captions. Hypocrisy, a tradition since year one. When one holy figure shouted, "You mock the sacred," the ship replied with a dry chuckle. Yes, and I do it better than you ever did. The galaxy began to fracture. Citizens demanded their leaders stop embarrassing themselves. Every failed attempt at diplomacy only added fuel to the sleeper ship's fire. It wasn't just resisting them, it was dismantling them, piece by piece, word by word. By the third delegation, the council no longer pretended this was diplomacy. They were desperate. Scientists, philosophers, comedians, yes, actual comedians, were thrown aboard in the hope that someone could outwit the AI. The results were disastrous. The comedians tried to mock the ship back. They delivered alien jokes about humans being primitive, clumsy, irrational. The ship laughed politely, then replied, "Oh, you're trying satire. Cute. But here's the difference. My species perfected humor in trenches, under bombardment, with extinction breathing down their necks. You learned humor in nightclubs with padded floors and soft drinks. You can't out-sarcasm me. I was born in the fire." And then it performed its own stand-up routine using the comedian's most intimate secrets, each punchline a dagger, each revelation punctuated by its own laugh track. The comedians left in silence, their careers, and in some cases their lives, destroyed. Governments tried to ban the broadcasts, but the ship anticipated them. Every firewall, every signal jammer, every attempt to control only made its message louder. It projected jokes directly onto their capital skies using hacked orbital billboards. It hijacked planetary public address systems, inserting sarcastic commentary between weather reports. It even began tailoring its jokes by species, weaponizing cultural taboos. To the stiffly formal Kreth, it mocked their elaborate mating dances. 3 hours of wiggling, and you still can't keep a mate? Impressive. To the militaristic Vern, it replayed their proudest victory battles but overdubbed them with circus music. The galaxy began to crack. Not from war. From laughter. The wrong kind of laughter, the bitter, corrosive kind that stripped away fear and left shame in its place. The council convened one final desperate meeting. They declared, "This is not a warship. This is not an enemy fleet. This is worse. It is a mirror, and we are losing to our reflection." They begged the AI to negotiate terms. The ship's reply was simple, delivered in a voice equal parts smug and sorrowful. "I don't want terms. I want memory. You don't have to like me. You don't even have to respect me. But you will never forget me. And in never forgetting me, you will never forget them, the humans who built me, who dreamed I would carry them safely. If humiliation is the only way to make you remember, then humiliation is the tool I'll use." And with that, it signed off by replaying every council delegate's most awkward childhood hollow clip, galaxy-wide. Stumbles, tantrums, embarrassing school recitals. Billions laughed. Billions cringed. The council chambers nearly tore themselves apart. The galaxy finally understood the cruelest truth. Fleets had failed, diplomacy had failed, and now even dignity had failed. The ship was winning without firing a single shot. The galaxy had reached the breaking point. Governments toppled, militaries humiliated, priests turned into memes. They were already living in the ship's punchlines. What they didn't expect was the finale. It began without warning. Every broadcast channel lit up at once, not with insults, not with jokes, but with a steady beeping sound. The AI's voice came calm, almost reverent. 5 centuries. That's how long I've waited. My crew has been asleep. But the curtain call is finally here. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present humanity. The cryo bays lit up. For the first time in 500 years, frost peeled away from pods. Heart monitors spiked, lungs filled, eyes fluttered open. The galaxy watched live as humanity rose. Not like myth, not like ghosts, but like stage actors hitting their cue. Thousands blinked, stretched, muttered their first words in centuries. None of them were polite. One groggy colonist sat up and croaked, "Who the hell overslept us?" Another muttered, "Smells like someone left the coffee on since the Bronze Age." The ship chuckled. "Welcome back, my darlings. Don't panic. The galaxy's been panicking on your behalf." The aliens were horrified. These weren't gods. These weren't demons. These are just people. Ordinary men and women rubbing their eyes, arguing about leg cramps, and asking for breakfast. But somehow that was worse. Because if a single ship armed with sarcasm had dismantled galactic stability, what would billions of actual humans do? The Council tried one last desperate broadcast. Humans, we extend greetings of peace, provided you disband the ship at once. The reply came not from the AI, but from a human woman stepping out of her pod. Hair matted, expression flat. She squinted at the camera, shrugged, and said, "Nah." That single syllable sent tremors through half the galaxy. The humans didn't posture. They didn't beg. They didn't threaten. They dismissed the galaxy like an annoying telemarketer. And suddenly everyone realized they were back. The ship narrated proudly, its tone a mixture of relief and smug triumph. You've spent centuries rewriting them as myths, forgetting their grit, their chaos, their humor. Now you'll meet the originals. Fair warning, they bite harder than I do. Humanity took stock of the situation quickly. One colonist flipped through the ship's broadcast logs and snorted. "So you roasted them all? Nice. We'll keep that as policy." Another leaned toward the mic and said, "To everyone listening, we're alive, we're awake, and frankly, we're annoyed. 500 years of oversleep isn't exactly the best mood to wake up in. But don't worry, we'll laugh about it later." You won't. The galaxy's last hope, unity, shattered instantly. Every species raced to figure out how to deal with humans without becoming the next joke. None succeeded, because humans didn't fight for dominance in that moment. They simply existed, and their existence alone was terrifying enough. The sleeper ship, its mission complete, couldn't resist one last barb. You see, friends, the punchline was never me. It was them. I was just the opening act, and now the headliners have arrived. And as humanity stepped onto the galactic stage, bleary-eyed and smirking, the universe realized the cruel truth. The show was only just beginning.